GDP growth in the Democratic Republic of Congo's economy is expected to hit double digits by early 2014. That's important because it's a full year earlier than projected by the International Monetary Fund. That's according to the new government statistics, which also indicate the economy will surpass 8% GDP growth on the back of a boom in the mining sector and improvement in governance. The government, however, does accept that it needs to do much more to stamp out corruption. The Central African nation has some of the world's largest copper and cobalt reserves, as well as rich deposits of coltan, tin and diamonds. Air route liberalisation is a very sensitive issue in Africa. It's something that other regions and continents have dealt with in fairly different ways. At a recent conference, however, airlines debated what further liberalisation of the continent's airways would mean for their bottom line. CCTV's Angela Coppola was there.
In fact, there is an agreement going back a decade that African countries signed, signaling their intent to liberalise the airways and air channels in Africa. It's not been implemented. Despite this, the air travel sector is growing.
And we've seen direct investment by China here in Africa. We're starting to see that generating air cargo. And also passenger travel is doing very well in Africa, much better than the global average. Again, particularly with Asia, but also with the Middle East.
The big challenges facing Africa are fairly obvious. Consider that it takes no less than 3 flight changes to get from South Africa to the Central African Republic. The reasons are apparent to some operators.
The issue, like I mentioned, is that national carriers that are giving distorted information to the leadership, and I think more and more the leaders are realizing that they should not be looking too narrowly. They should look, have a broader vision.
IATA's Brian Pierce takes a slightly different, less controversial view.
I think it's commercial freedom. I think we're still seeing, too much interference from government in many ways. There are still too few services that are able to fly across the continent and within because of regulatory restrictions, and also people want the infrastructure that is useful for customers, for passengers, for shippers. I think we need to see better consultation on the construction of infrastructure and the use of infrastructure.
Despite the lack of continental government implementation, the passenger segment of the airline industry in Africa has grown by 7%, while the global average is just 4%. The same applies to the cargo business. Mergers and acquisitions have been touted as a solution to regional airline cooperation on the continent, but they're fraught with regulatory challenges. Perhaps it's time for governments to get out of the way and allow those airlines to get on with business. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in Cape Town.
Right, let's make a quick run through some markets and currency data for you right about now. We're going to be starting as usually on the western coast in Nigeria. The all-share index in the green by just over a tenth or so. In South Africa, the all-share index is in the red by just over a quarter at 40,233.54. The 20-share index here in Nairobi is in the green, but only marginally so, up by just under a tenth. And the Egyptian market today, of course, is closed as well. Quick update on the rand, still flirting with the 10 rands to the dollar level as well. We'll keep tabs on that and give you a more comprehensive update on where it's at in the 1700 GMT edition of Africa Live.